This lesson is 2.7, day 1, and today we're going to talk about how to prove statements about pairs of angles. And kind of before you are able to prove statements, we have to talk about different types of pairs of angles. And most of them you already know. We're just going to put some final words around them so that we can use them on our theorem card. So right angle congruence theorem just means that all right angles are congruent. That's kind of a does statement because they all equal 90 degrees. Linear pair postulate, we've used it a lot. So if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. It means they equal 180. And then vertical angles are congruent. Remember, those are the ones that kind of make an X and then they point to each other kind of across the way. So those guys are equal. So our first example just has us looking at this picture. So if angle 1 is 112, they just want you to fill in all the other angles. So angle 3 would be vertical, so that would be 112. Angle 2 would be linear, so that has to add up to 180, and that would be 68. And then again, vertical angles have to be equal. So each of these is just a different example, and I'll just run through the numbers. So if angle 2 is 67, so different problem. If that is 67, then you have to figure out the rest of the angles. Angle 4 is the vertical angle, so that's the one that's going to be equal. The other two are the linear pair angles. So this one has to add up to 180, so it's going to make it 113. And then vertical from it would also be 113. If angle 4 is 71, new problem. If angle 4 is 71, find the rest. So 1 is going to be a linear pair with that. So 180 minus 71 leaves me with 109. Angle 2 is vertical, 71. And angle 3 is vertical to number 1, so 109. Just kind of getting you used to those pairs of angles. Last one we have has letters in it. So 3x plus 1 is what 4 is. And I know 1 is 32. So that means this one's 32, angle 3. Also means this guy's got to be 3x plus 1. And so I can take these two and add them up. And they have to equal 180. Just like before, only this one has got some variables in it. So now 180. So now I have 33 plus 3x equals 180. So 180 minus 33 from both sides. And I'm going to run into this other problem. So 3x equals 147. And then you're going to divide by 3 on both sides, and you get x is 49. So now that I know it's 49, I actually have to plug it back in order for me to find the measure of the angle. So I'm going to times it by 3 and add 1, and these are 148. A faster way to do it is just to say if that guy's 32, these have to add up to 180, so I could have just done my subtraction and figured that out as well. Just a different way to do it. A couple more examples, doing lots of vertical and linear pair, getting you used to those two different vocabs and then how to solve them. So these guys are vertical, so that means they have to be equal to each other. So I'm going to minus the 3x over and add 18 all at once. So if I add 18, I'll end up with 22, so x is 22. This guy, these are linear, so that means that 4x minus 1 has to add up with 113 to equal 180. So you're going to first subtract your 113 over and add your 1. So minus your 113 and add 1. And you end up with 4x equaling 68. And then when you divide by 4, you end up with x equaling 17. This is kind of a mess. We got all kinds of variables going on there. 3 different ones actually, x, y, and z. So try and match up two variables, the variables that match, and see what you can do. So here I've got y's, here I've got y's. So I'm going to talk about these two together, and they make 180. They're a linear pair. So that means they have to equal 180 degrees. So I'm just going to put some stuff together here. So 8y plus 12 equals 180. And I start solving, so I take off my 12, and then I'm going to divide by 8. And I get x is, y, we were solving for y, is 21. Once I know that y is 21, I can plug that in right there and times it by 3, add 1, and I get 71. Just to check and make sure we did it right, I'm going to do 5 times 21, and I'm going to add 4, just to make sure that this and the 109 equal 180. That'll tell me real fast if I did it right or wrong. So since those work out, I'm going to keep going. So if that's 71, that angle has to equal 71, so that means z is 71. And then that means that 2x, sneak it in here, oops, 27x, plus 1 has to equal 109. These are vertical angles to each other, so they have to equal each other. So I'm going to add 1, subtract 1 for 108. And I forgot my x. So 108 divided by 27 is 4. So I found each of the 3 variables. Oh, and that looks like it's it for 2.7 day 1. Today is all about 3 different types of angles: right angles, linear pairs, and vertical.